Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrek. I'm Captain Jim, and with me, of course, is Admiral Elliot.
Hi there.
And we're back talking about, we're still on Barclay. We've got a few more Barclays to talk about. This is the last TNG appearance. And
well, we've already done First Contact, haven't we, where he does crop up?
Yeah, we've done First Contact. So this is the last episodic TNG Barclay appearance. Season 7's Genesis, which I don't mind it, but it's got a bit of a reputation. But we'll get into that one, and then we're also looking at the next step in what we're calling the prelude to the Dominion War, because it's got a bit to do with shapeshifters. So we're counting it and looking at the alternate from DS9's second season. Before we get there, though, Elliot, what Trek news have we got this week?
Right, in Trek news, Kate Mulgrew did a interview about another show she's working on, but she spent a couple of minutes talking about Prodigy.
All right, I missed this.
And she's let us know, I'm quite sure now that it's not going to be Voyager, because she says it's literally, she's told us how the first episode is going to start.
Right.
And we have the five children. Like there's 6 that we've seen, but one's a robot. It says there's 5 children, and they're being held prisoner on a far off planet, unknown planet, in an uncharted part of the Delta Quadrant.
Right.
And they escape. They're running away across the planet, and they stumble on a desolate starship.
Right.
And they're trying to get it working, and one of them leans on a button, and Janeway appears and goes, "What's up, kids? How can I help you?"
Cool.
So
that's a pretty cool opening.
Yeah,
but that's good.
As far as she's gone, but that's like more than we've known.
Yeah, it's way more. I mean, that's good though. That's enough to tease you. And I imagine that'll be the teaser, and then we'll get the credits. But yeah, it's enough.
And she said it's set. What year did she say? I can't remember what year she said, but it's set 4 years after Voyager returns from the Delta Quadrant.
Right. Okay.
So I'm wondering if there's another Federation ship that's been sent out after Voyager's got home, and they've used like some of the Borg technology on Voyager to open a trans-warp conduit and sent a ship through to sort of
it could well
meant to say hello to people, and it's just ended up crashing in the wrong place.
Yeah, it could well be. Yeah, no, that sounds exciting. Excellent. And we've got a shout out, have we not?
Yeah. About an hour and a half ago from when we were recording, Puppy and Locutus, who play a game with me, Star Trek Fleet Command in the Alliance I'm in, they had a son at 358. So I just want to say a big congratulations to the pair of them.
Yeah, definitely. Are they going to go with a Star Trek name?
They haven't said yet.
No,
all I've said is, baby and mum are fine, she's just very tired now. I don't think they'll be watching live, but they'll catch us later.
That's all.
They'll see us on a rerun.
Yeah. So then, let's look at the first one. As I say, the last Barclay episode, TNG Season 7, Genesis. And as I said, this one, you tend to see this on the list of like the bottom 10 TNG episodes, which I think's a bit harsh. I think if you're doing a bottom 10 of TNG, there's no excuse for anything that isn't from season 1 or 2 making up that top 10. For my money. I mean, there's maybe 1 or 2 not around, but
this is another one it's quite an enjoyable episode. It's just the premise of it is like a bit weird.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is sort of taking the weird virus thing to the extreme, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's built upon. I'll admit I don't keep up with my science journals and stuff like that, but I do remember at the time this came out, this idea of junk DNA was something that people were talking about. Like, I remember it was a big thing in the X-Files, wasn't it? Like, they talked about how I'm sure it turned out that in the X-Files, everyone had junk alien DNA because the aliens had been on Earth before us.
Yeah, and it's T cells, and T cells are sort of a Resident Evil thing as well, aren't they?
Oh, of course, yeah.
With the T virus.
So, yeah, I remember this being a thing at the time. I don't know whether this is still where it stands in modern scientific circles, whether we still have spider DNA in us, or whether they've decided that it's a daft idea. But at the time,
I think it was sort of like
topical.
I think it's that sort of thing that they sort of say, like, you share 98% genes with goldfish and things like that.
Yeah, you see,
because we have the same roots and stuff. So I think it's sort of I think they're sort of going off that, aren't they?
Yeah, you see these things on Facebook that'll crop up every so often, don't they? And they say things like, "Did you know you've actually got more in common genetically with a slug than you have with a chimpanzee?" Or, I've made that one up, but things like
that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I don't know how accurate it is, but it's a good idea for an episode of Star Trek. So we start off then, and we've got Riker is in sickbay, and he's been on a date, and he's been rolling in the cactus in the Arboretum. Obviously, we don't need to tell you what the implication is, but that's not very professional for your first officer. Like, you go for a walk in the Arboretum, and all you can see is Riker's ass.
Well, he says, doesn't he? He goes, the new lieutenant on board.
Yeah.
So it's someone who someone's come on board and he's thought, I'll make a move there before anyone else gets in.
Yeah, is this like a sort of casting couch type of thing? Because we know that Riker does the performance evaluations of the crew. Yeah. So I'm sure there's a conflict of interests here or something. But anyway, Riker's been up to a bit of shenanigans, and we're not slut shaming him or anything, as long as it was all consensual and everybody was happy. Yeah. I just think maybe the Arboretum's not the best place for it, Riker. But anyway, and he'd agree with me because he's got cactus up his ass or whatever he's got at the start of the episode. And Barclay's in there as well, and we found out that his hypochondria's not got much better since last episode. And it's almost now we've sort of crossed the border into just out and out farce with it, really. Like, any sort of degree of seriousness that we were taking Barclay and his concerns about his health and stuff, we're just playing it for laughs now because he thinks he's got Torellian death syndrome, and then it's like, well, you haven't got that, also maybe I've got this instead. And it is just totally played for laughs now.
Like, what gets me here is, and this crops up again later in the episode, just how rubbish Dr. Crusher is made out in some episodes.
Oh, yeah, she's rubbish.
He's obviously gone in as a hypochondriac, and he's going, I've got elevated blood pressure. And she sort of looks, you have? Like, she's been scanning him with a tricorder.
Yeah.
And looking at stuff and going, there's nothing wrong with you. And then he goes up and he puts his finger on. I'm assuming it's a blood pressure monitor.
Yeah.
And she goes, you have? And then goes, you've got so-and-so flu.
Yeah, that's pretty bad, really.
But you not dealing, your body's not dealing with it because you're missing one of your T cells.
Yeah, shouldn't that be in his file?
So he has got something wrong with him, and he's incapable of getting better from it without medical assistance, and you've just been going to him. There's nothing wrong with you. stop reading medical journals. Like, is it that she is just humouring him by going like that with a tricorder and not checking? Because, possibly he comes in every day.
Yeah, she's playing like Candy Crush on tricorder and not even doing a reading.
Maybe it's become that. It's that sort of thing that it's become so common in coming in with things not wrong with him. Because he's read something in the medical journal that she's just not even checking anymore, which is a very dangerous premise to have, as we find out here.
We do, yeah, and he gets a shot for it, and obviously we're going to find out what a mess Beverly's made of this as the episode goes on. But meanwhile, we've got Spot, who's now a female cat, which she wasn't before. Spot was always a male cat.
Now, to be fair, this does happen. Like, with my ex, we had a cat.
Yeah.
And for several years, he was called Andy until he had kittens.
Right. Okay. So you think this is just
and he'd been checked with by the vet, and the vet had told us because he was a rescue cat, and the vet told us he's a boy. So.
Well, that's it. I mean, cats it don't dangle down, does it? You know, a dog, it's easy to tell. A cat, it's all sort of kept up there. But you'd think by this point they'd just do a scan and go, it's a boy cat or it's a girl cat.
Well, you would.
But we need Spot to be a girl cat for this episode to work. So, fair enough. I'll go with your explanation. Data didn't check when he got Spot. Just decided.
He possibly asked Beverly Crusher because we actually see how slack she is in this episode from Missing
There you go,
Things. We've already seen with Reg Barkley, she'd missed him was ill, and he can't deal with it himself.
Mm. And I like that if you've got an ill pet, there isn't a vet on the Enterprise. It's like, nope, sick bay does it. We animals, humans, aliens.
And to be fair, this makes sense to me. Because they do all alien medicine as well, don't they? So they're not like how we are, how you have a doctor who deals with humans and a vet deals with animals. A doctor in Starfleet has to be able to deal with lots of different species anyway. So
especially cats as well, because you've got that, what's her name? Emrez, whatever she was called in the animated series, and in...
you have them in Star Trek 5.
And Lower Decks as well. So, you've probably got to know your cat stuff at least. And Nurse Agawa, we find out, is pregnant as well. And that's the end of the teaser for this episode. We've mentioned this a few times, how some episodes just have the naffest teaser going. I mean... Yeah. The idea of the teaser...
And this is it's actually quite a long teaser as well. It seems to go on quite a long time.
But the idea is you watch the teaser, you're gripped, and in America, often straight after the teaser, before you even got the credits, you would have a commercial break. So this has got to be good enough to keep you invested. Or, I need to know what happens on Star Trek this week. There's a cat and a nurse that are pregnant, and Barkley thinks he's got a weird disease. Is this because this is season 7? We know that this is our last season. We're not as fussed as we used to be for getting gripped. I don't know.
Yeah, it was announced quite early, wasn't it, that this would be the last season?
Yeah, and it was...
there was originally meant to be 8 seasons.
Yeah.
And it was because the studio made the decision that they'd go into movies with them.
That's it. They wanted
Why
movies.
They didn't get season 8?
Yeah, exactly. 'Cause TNG was wildly popular. So the main part of the episode, then, we lose a photon torpedo, and quite out of character, Picard decides, I'm off on this mission, which he doesn't usually do this kind of thing. Fair enough.
Not often.
He just wants to get out there.
Yeah, I get the impression that they're on a weapons drill, and he's not actually neat. It's Worf and the first officer who are basically doing this drill.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
He's just sat in the chair, not really doing anything.
Yeah, this is Worf's big thing that he's doing, and he's designed this new program and everything.
Yeah, I've increased the accuracy of this missile that'll go out of control.
Yeah, that I've just lost straight away. Yeah, not Worf's best day either, but so Data gets Barclay to look
and this is never explained throughout the episode either. We never get an explanation why we lost the missile.
No, it's true. I just thought it was because Worf's guidance system wasn't much cop.
No, because he checked all the torpedo system and all the torpedo, and the torpedo checked out fine.
Okay.
But we never, because Riker says at one point, "Oh, well, it must be in the torpedo tubes in the firing mechanism," but
yeah,
it never actually gets explained. So
you know what? We need to lose the torpedo to get Data and Picard off the ship. That's why we have to lose the torpedo.
We need a MacGuffin.
Yeah, exactly. And so Barclay's going to look after Spot, and apparently Spot's been attacking people left, right, and centre. It's only Barclay that she can actually put up with. Which, are you allowed vicious animals? I mean, I think all cats are vicious. So
yeah, cats are funny who they like and who they don't like.
Exactly. And meanwhile, Worf's getting... This is the first hint that something's going wrong. Because Worf's getting unnaturally angry about his torpedo drill and everything. And Riker tells him he's got to take a break. And then we get this horrible scene in 10 Forward where Worf's just stuffing his face with all this food. And there's octopus tentacles and all sorts.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about this. And I was watching this, and I'm thinking, this was done in the mid to early 90s.
Yeah.
This episode, sort of 94.
Yeah.
And back then, having things like octopus wasn't something people would recognise.
No, I suppose not.
If you know what I mean. So they were using octopus and that because it was meant to be he's having a big plate of Klingon food.
Yeah, it looked really.
It was meant to look very alien.
And it's
amazing that you look at it now, and like you said straight away, he's having octopus and all this. But at the time, we weren't meant to know that. We were meant to think he's having this elaborate alien thing, and it's just lost now.
And it reminds me of that scene in The Return of the King where Denethor's eating that food and it's horrible and it's going all over his hands and everything. And what we probably should mention, I mean, it plays into this episode quite a lot, is that this is the point in TNG where they decided randomly that in the last half of the last season, we were going to do a romance story between Worf and Troy. And so you get a lot of this stuff sort of crammed into these episodes. And which is
odd because... It's odd, really, because they could have done this for several seasons with Worf and Troy.
Of course, yeah.
Because, we had Troy was very involved, like when Worf gets paralysed.
Well, yeah.
With Alexander, she was involved in stuff. And yet they weren't romantically involved back then.
No, and I think it's in Parallels, in the alternate timeline, they say that that's when the romance started, don't they?
Yeah.
I didn't hate the Worf Troy thing. I thought it was reasonably well done. I believed it. It's just that it doesn't go anywhere and it's never mentioned again, which is...
Yeah, it was like, it's just sort of like forgotten by the time movies come around. It's not happening anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And Worf then, we have this scene where he tears up his bed and he decides he's sleeping on the floor. Where's Alexander at this stage? Shouldn't Alexander be somewhere in the quarters going, hang on, Dad,
Hasn't he got rid of Alexander by now?
I thought he'd got him again at this point. I know that he comes on and with Kayla, and then Worf sends him away to live with his parents on Earth. But then I think he comes back in about season 5. And then he's there again.
I'd have to really look into it when Worf gets rid of him again.
No, he must have him because this isn't... There was Fistful of Datas. We covered that one, and Alexander was there then.
Yeah.
That was season 6. So unless something happens in between, yeah, we'll check it. But I think it's a bit weird. Anyway. And then we've got Barclay being really hyper. Now, I think Dwight Schultz is channeling a bit of Jeff Goldblum in The Fly with his performance in this episode. Particularly in the briefing scene later on where he's sort of hovering over Riker. And a lot of his physicality and like the way he's sort of ticking and everything, it really reminds me of how Goldblum played it in The Fly. And I suppose... turning into a spider, not that different to turning into a fly. Yeah. So if you're going to look for a reference for your performance, why not? And we get all this stuff with Worf. So Worf bites Troy and he attacks her when she's in a bath because she's wanting moisture and everything. So we find out she's turning into a fish.
Is it she wants moisture and it to be hotter? And he's complaining how hot it is.
Yes, when they're on the bridge, yeah. So they're arguing about the heat, and then he finds her in the bath and attacks her. And then when Beverly looks at him, he's developed a venom sac and he spits acid at her.
Now, this is the other one that I want to go on about Beverly not being observant and all that. Because she's examining Worf for quite some time here. And then she's just about finished with him. And then she notices the big gland on his neck. And I'm not being funny, but it's out here. And she's about to send him off that there's nothing wrong. And then she goes, "Oh, what's that on your neck?" As if it's a little pimple or spot. And it's a great big bloody gland out here that she's not noticed all the time.
One of the first things that doctors do is they do that where they feel your glands.
I'm not being funny, but as soon as he walked through the door, he'd be, "What the hell's that on you?"
Yeah, exactly.
Not sort of, after I've finished all the exam and I can't find anything wrong, I'm suddenly going to, "Oh, what's that?" It's
Klingon with a massive big thing on the side of his face. Maybe she's just not very observant.
Well, obviously not, because she didn't notice Barclay was ill.
Exactly. And other things going on. I quite like it. I like the way the cast, before we get the time jump and Picard and Data come back, I like the way they start bringing stuff into the performances. Like Riker's sort of being a bit indecisive, and he's like, "Oh, Data, you sort, Geordie, you sort that out." And
he's been forgetful and stuff.
Yeah. There's a bit where I think it's just before it goes to another commercial break, and it's just Riker sort of staring out into space, and the camera sort of freezes on him. And then in the background, you've got Nurse Agawa walks off, and she's walking like an ape, the way she moves her hands and everything. They're really, really good. And then we do get the time jump. So Picard and Data are coming back. They find the ship adrift, and you get like the Enterprise at a different angle to what we usually see, which is nice.
Obviously the toast driver's failed.
The toast drive, yes. Anyone who's not familiar with the toast drive, look it up. There's a good meme that explains why the ships are always pointing the same way in Star Trek. And it's one of these where, we had this on Voyager, didn't we, with Macrocosm, where someone gets back to the ship and it's really spooky and all the lights are off and you've got to wander around and work out what's happened. And they end up at Troy's quarters and basically she's turned into like an amphibian. And my first thought was, they must have, while Picard and Data are away, they must have broken Warp 10, because that's what happens when you break Warp 10. Is you turn into amphibians.
Well, we didn't know this at this point.
We didn't, but
maybe Barclay might have, because he, like with his spider's powers, he is becoming a bit more clever, more intelligent and everything.
Exactly. Yeah, he could have done it, and
he's maybe having a flashback to, was it Transfigurations that we did?
Nth Degree, where he took him to the centre of the universe. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it could be. Could be. And then they find Riker in the ready room, and he's a caveman now, basically.
And this looks like he's eating the fish tank.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope not.
I think he emptied that fish tank during this.
Not what's he called? The Livingston, I think. God knows why I know that Picard's fish is called Livingston, but hopefully he didn't. But maybe they have to replace it with Livingston 2 and hope that Picard doesn't notice. Oh, you know what? If they can't fix Councillor Troy, stick her in there once she's turned into a little fish. You can do that. But anyway, yeah, we work out it's to do with this T-cell thing. And
we've got the helmsman's dead at the controls.
Oh, yeah, bit of gore.
This made me wonder because we do find out, like, Worf has changed Major Predator, but these are predatory species people are changing into.
Oh, yeah, I mean, humans.
And I wonder how many of the crew were actually killed before they cured them.
Yeah, it's a good point, because you're right. Like, they play it up in this episode like Worf's the only really dangerous one, but even things like there's got to be some Vulcans on the ship, and we know that earlier Vulcans are really savage, so...
Yeah, but, like, Data does a scan and he goes, there's 110 life signs on the ship. Now, I think at the time, the crew was 1,018, was it?
Yeah.
But he just says life signs. His cat's just had kittens.
Yeah, that's true.
We find out in another episode when Data finds out that Spot's pregnant, that there's 9 felines on board that it could be.
That's 9 male felines.
So we can knock off 10 there as these life signs, plus the kittens. Let's say there was 4 kittens as a small thing. So 14 of 118. So we've got 104. So I think we're missing people here. I think we've lost quite a few crew.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, speaking of the kittens, like, the poor bloody lizard that they got to play Spot. So it's like, the kittens are okay, but Spot's turned into a lizard. And it's there with a collar on it and everything. Like, poor little sod. Brilliant. And they work out, basically, the kittens were okay because of something in the womb. So therefore...
And embryotic fluids.
And that's it. And so we need to find a pregnant human so that we can synthesize it all and blah, blah, blah. Though, why you need... I suppose if the virus has come from a human DNA will fix it. You don't need a pregnant person of each species, I suppose, to fix it. And this is where we get Spider Barclay when they go to engineering. And yeah, for anyone watching the live stream, there's a picture of Spider Barclay. It's pretty cool, mate, to be honest.
I think it's really good makeup.
Yeah, it's proper, like, horror stuff, isn't it? You know, that wouldn't be a miss in a mid-budget horror film. Maybe a little bit of horror lighting on it would have made it work a bit better. But yeah, I like that. It's another one where you're going to get Dwight Schultz on. And if we look at the episodes, like the first few, Hull Pursuits, Nth Degree, they really got the money's worth out of him. You know, he was star of the show, centre of attention. These last couple, I mean, Realm of Fear, he was there most of it, but he didn't do a lot of... It was quite a restrained performance, where this one, he's barely in it, really.
It's sort of like... Yeah, it's that thing, it's sort of like... Why is your guest star? Why haven't you got a story about your guest star?
Yeah, like maybe it was just, we want to get him back before season 7 wraps up. This is the only time he's available, so we'll fit him into whichever episode. But
well, you did used to get that that also you had stars and celebrities asked to be on Star Trek and they get little roles written for them. Like Guinan was written because Whoopi Goldberg wanted to be on Star Trek.
Yes, yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly.
like you have it quite a lot of people have been on Star Trek. And they have little roles because they've asked to be. So I can see why maybe the first time they asked it, he's asked, and they've done a Barclay-centric episode, and maybe the second time. But by third or fourth time, it's, well, yeah, we've got this story coming up, and yeah, we can work you into it, but you're not going to be the main star.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, I mean, it's great to see him and everything, but it's a weird one. I mean, obviously, he comes back in Voyager, so this isn't the last we see of Barclay. Data, then, what we'll do is we'll make a spray out of Councillor Troy's pheromones to lure Worf away. Like, if we say it quick and move on, it's fine. It's so minging when you think about what's actually going on there. Like, you've got this monster Worf who's basically trying to shag Troy as a fish. And they're like, well, let's make a spray of her pheromones so we can make it think she's... I mean, it's horrible if you think about it. But anyway, that's what they do. Picard gets to do his Die-Hard impression again, crawling round the vents and everything.
But he's devolving now, isn't he? And he's turning into is it a vole? So he's really scared of everything.
Or a pygmy or something. And the furthest we see of it is he gets like these welts on his arms, and that's about it. But he manages to electrocute Worf in the thing. The Jeffrey's cube, which is pretty cool. And then we wrap up really quickly. Data's got the cure. He sends it out through the air vents. Everyone's okay, but Barclay thinks it's his fault. But they go, no, don't worry. It's actually Beverly's fault, so you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, it's my fault. I should have realised. Well, I think we've established this episode, and don't get me wrong here, because I'm a big fan of Dr. Crusher Nolly, and I think she's really good. But this episode, they make her look really incompetent.
Yeah, they do. And we've had a bit of a run of episodes where she's not come across at her best, unfortunately.
Yeah, we might have to have a look at some good Beverly Crusher episodes when we've finished with Barclay.
Yeah, we're not going to do that one with
like
the
Sub Rosa.
Yeah, I'm going to say we're not. If we're doing a good Beverly episode.
We might throw that in somewhere.
Yeah, well, we will have to do it. I think that's Film It at the Pub episode is Sub Rosa. That's not
we might just do a long live stream from the pub and slag off the really bad episodes, get them all out of the way in one.
We'll bump them all together and just run through them. That's a good idea. So moving on to DS9 then, we've got the alternate.
Well, we do finish. I quite like how this episode finishes.
Go on.
How Dr. Crusher names the disease after Barclay.
Yes, that's true.
And Troy's there, and then Troy sort of suddenly realises what's happened and sort of, I need to clear my schedule for the next few weeks.
Yeah, this is going to be a big one. The plexing.
And that's where it ends.
Yeah. The plexing that I showed last week ain't going to work. That's one of those lines that if this had been done in the original series, if the episode had finished, I better clear my schedule for the next few weeks. It'd have been one of them classic TOS endings where they all just stand on the bridge and go,
yeah.
They're all snapping each other's backs. It'd have been one of them.
Yeah, it would.
TV has moved on a little bit since the 60s, and we don't do that. But they were good. They were cracking endings to some of the episodes. Anyway.
Well, it wasn't showed the camaraderie between all the bridge crew.
Exactly. So the alternate, Deep Space Nine. As I say, we're looking at this one because it's a very Odo-centric episode, and it does have ties to later Dominion episodes. So that's our excuse, and we're sticking with it. So we start off with Quark selling pieces of what he says is the late great Plague, who's a Ferengi businessman. And we find out
we were talking about this, weren't we, a couple of weeks ago? And this is the Ferengi who give the holodecks to all these places.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. And so I love this idea that when Ferengis die, they sell them. They break up the body and sell them off. And I think there's a later episode, isn't there, where Quark tries to do it. And it's a way of trying to pay off your debts while you're alive, is you pre-sell your dead body to people. It's just great. I love some of the stuff they do with Ferengi. And
I like when Odo's questioning him about it.
Yes.
And all that, and he goes, well, it's got the seal of Ferengi dismemberment on it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's good enough for anybody, is that? Yeah, brilliant. Great opening. And then we meet...
It's not plague.
Yes, not plague. And we meet Dr. Mora, who... This is one of these actors who he's been in Star Trek no end of times. I think he's called James Sloyan, and he was also... He played the future Alexander in... I forget the name of the episode, but the one where Alexander comes back from the future. It's one of the really late TNG episodes. Birthright or something. But anyway, so...
Oh, yeah.
He plays that one. He played Jetrel in season 1 of Voyager. And obviously he's got this recurring role here as Dr. Mora. And straight away, I think we'd heard earlier on, hadn't we, that Odo modelled his hair on the Bajoran that found him. And sure enough, we see that Dr. Mora's got Odo's hairdo, so that's really cool. And there is a really nice scene with, and Mora calls Odo on it later on, where Quark is trying to big Odo up to Dr. Mora because he thinks he's important to him. He's also trying to get himself out of trouble. Because he's going, Odo, we're going to start a fraud inquiry from me. But
it's an interesting one, isn't it? It's like, we do know that Quark is crooked, but is Quark actually guilty here? Because he says he's got 600
No, I don't think he is.
of these things, and he goes, I bought them in good faith.
Yeah, I think he's been done here. I think it's probably Plague that sold him it, through back channels. Plague's probably trying to make money selling his own dead body part. And straight away, Mora's relationship with Odo's really interesting. Like, immediately, he starts off being really analytical of him. He's talking about his appearance, like, oh, you're still struggling with the ears, but you look better overall than you did. And he's talking about his psychology, like, you want to be a policeman. And so
he's almost talking about him in the as a third person, as if Odo's not there.
Yeah, he acts like, Quark says, oh, you're Odo's dad. And Odo's like, he's not my dad. But Dr. Mora acts like he wants Odo to think of him as his dad, but he is treating him like a thing rather than a person at this point.
Yeah, he's still treating him like a specimen.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like when he's walking round him and going, oh, you still haven't got the ears quite right, and this and that, very good. But it sounds almost as if he's speaking to an audience studying him.
Yes, he does, and
which sort of explains why Odo's back goes up around him.
Yeah, absolutely, because when you've got that sort of father-son power dynamic, if the one who's in the father role is immediately critical of the one who's in the son role, it's really dispiriting, and he's doing it in a way that if you just took on the surface what he's saying, it doesn't seem that bad, but it's the impact that it has on Odo that, and I think he's aware of that. I think he's trying to get a reaction out of him. I don't think he's an evil character or, a nasty character, but I do think he's totally blinded by this idea that he has to research him, that he's not seen him enough as a person. And obviously
Yeah.
that's going to get really explored in this episode. So they end up heading off to the Gamma Quadrant. He basically thinks he's found what could be Odo's homeworld, or where Odo originated from.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, it's not. But, it could be.
Yeah, like, it tells him that he's detected some sort of radiation or signal that matches something that he detected when they first found Odo. But he can't get permission to go from the Bajorans for months and months.
Yeah.
So it's come to Odo to pull some strings.
Fair play. Because at this point in the series, Cisco were giving out runabouts at drop of a hat, weren't he? Everyone could have a runabout if you had an idea. This would have been a good point, and we said this when we looked at Vortex. If Odo had kept that necklace with the shapeshifty thing in it, this would have been a great opportunity for Dr. Mora to go, what's that? Or even Odo to say, what do you think of this? And have a conversation like, oh, it's similar in genetic structure. Maybe that came from here as well. And, I just think that's a plot thread they shouldn't have dropped. But
yeah, like at this point, it's starting to look like there's going to be numerous species of shapeshifters.
Yeah.
That it's actually quite it's quite a common occurrence in the Gamma Quadrant.
And, in the broader Star Trek universe, there are more than one species of shapeshifter. We've met a few already by this point, but specifically Odo's species, it is implied that maybe there's more than just the one. There's a bit on the runabout which again shows this thing with Dr. Mora. Like he's talking to Dax about Odo. And at first, it's almost like a proud parent, like you say, Odo he did this and he did that. And then Odo takes over the story, but then Dr. Mora jumps back in and won't let him finish the story. It's like, no, you're not telling it. So Odo says, I'd never seen it. He says, no, seen isn't right. And he won't let Odo tell his story in his own words. So you're getting both sides of it. You're sort of getting the proud parent, but also the parent who's putting his kid down in the same conversation. So, yeah, he's an interesting character. And they find this obelisk then, and a small silicon-based thing. And again, this would have been a good point to bring back that necklace. Like, it's the same genetic makeup as whatever that is inside the necklace.
Or it's 99.9% the same.
Yeah, that would have been good. But the obelisk is something that we do see again in Deep Space Nine. So this is his justification. There's an earthquake and the gas and everything. And they get back to the station. Dr. Mora's ill, and we get this really interesting conversation where Cisco talks about his dad. Now, this really sounds like Cisco's dad's dead. From the way this conversation goes, like he says, when my father was ill, so past tense, he's had an illness.
Yeah.
And he says, and ultimately I realised there was nothing I could do to help him. But we meet Joseph Cisco 2 seasons later.
Maybe it's one of those things that at the time they thought
I think so.
they'd play Cisco's as if he had lost his dad, and then
I think
it's one of those. We'll change it. We haven't actually said he's dead.
That's it.
We only had these couple of lines.
Yeah, he as good as says he were dead. The way it's framed and the way it's delivered.
Yeah, the way it's said is as if he's talking past tense.
Dead. It's almost funny sort of looking back on it, because if someone, a friend of mine or someone I worked with, said all this to me, I would assume their dad was dead. And then if his dad turned up on the station, I'd be like, hang on, you were just bullshitting me then when Dr. Mora was ill and you gave me all this stuff about your dad. And then what's Cisco going to do? Say, well, I never said he were dead. I only said he were ill. We're like, yeah, come off it, Cisco. But yeah, I think it's one of those where they've decided further down the line, you know what, it's more interesting if his dad's not dead. and we get a great
and
character
to
out
be
of it.
fair, Joseph Cisco is a really good character.
Exactly. So I'm happy to let it go for us to get to keep Joseph Cisco because he is very, very good. The life form, then we'll call it the life form, seems to escape and trash the lab. And there's a great exchange between Dax and Cisco. Like Dax says, "I don't believe it," and Cisco says, "Good. So find me a better theory." I really like that. I like how well they work together and how much faith Cisco has in Dax. You know, like, yeah, you get on.
This is played from the very start, isn't it? Because Cisco's known Curzon. And Curzon was a mentor, so he does have a lot of faith in Dax.
Yeah, definitely.
He doesn't view her as a young Starfleet officer.
No, not at all. He knows what she's capable of, and Jadzia, even divorced from the Dax symbiont, is a very capable person, but with all the Dax stuff as well.
Yeah.
And then last in Genesis, we got Picard doing his John McClane impression, and we get O'Brien getting in on the act a little bit in this one. He gets to do a bit of crawling round, but it's
I like this with O'Brien, and O'Brien's going through and he's there. If anyone sees my wife, don't tell her I did this. Because later on tonight she'll go, "How was your day?" And I'll just go, "It was fine, honey."
Yeah, exactly. And this, I think, is less Die Hard. This is more Alien. This is like that scene where Dallas is crawling through the corridors and they've got the tracker. And I think it's deliberate. So it's very, very much like it. And if you're going to do an homage to a claustrophobic...
Well, it's even the part where he pulls the grill down and stuff falls on him.
Exactly.
Because that's when Dallas gets killed.
Yeah, that's when the alien's there. And
yeah.
So, if you're going to do it, steal from the best, definitely.
Yeah.
And
I have no problem because I really like this, and you can see why you'd have O'Brien doing it, because O'Brien knows his way around the conduits.
Yeah. And O'Brien...
And we know that O'Brien's had a military background and...
Yeah. And he's a good guy to put in all the horrible situations, as we discover with the Torture O'Brien episodes later in the show.
Yeah.
We'll have to do a mini-season on them at some point and just look at all the abuse O'Brien gets. And we find
some of it.
It is, yeah. But it was because they loved Cole Meany that much that they were like, we're going to really put him through the ringer every season, at least once a season. So they find the life form. The life form's dead. O'Brien gets slimed. And they say it couldn't survive in that environment, basically. So to all intents and purposes, that's gone. The shapeshifter's gone. So what else could be going on? And Bashir has a little... what I think's a bit of a creepy monologue, really, when he's talking about Dax, and he's like, "One day I'll stop chasing her, then we'll see." And he's like, that's a bit pervy, Julian. Like, calm down.
Well, to be fair, he is chasing her massively at this point in the series. Still, it does stop this, but thankfully, but he's played as like a young officer who's got the hots and he's seen her.
And who could blame him? I mean,
Yeah.
But it does come across a bit bordering into creepy territory, but he is right to an extent. Dax does admit that she does enjoy the attention and does enjoy chasing her, so fair play.
Let's be fair here, though, that at the end, Bashir does get Dax.
Yeah, eventually.
He does win.
Eventually he does, yeah. And then we get a cool scene where, like, the shapeshifter thing attacks Bashir. And I love the way Alexander Siddig sort of delivers the lines when he's all stressed out. He's like, emergency, intruder, alerts. It's just a really weird way of doing it. His voice just changes completely. But again, it's a good horror-tinged sequence. And we get Odo investigating and everything. And Dr. Mora's starting to work out what's actually going on, I think. But
well, we get Daxu studying it, don't we? She's studying the DNA and all that. And there's been a residue left by whatever's been attacking.
Yeah.
And then she's got sample of like this dead life form.
Yeah, and they work out.
And she said, no, it's two different life forms. Is this?
Yeah, and that's when
the cousins, they're similar. They've got similarities, but the cousins. And you can see it in Dr. Maru's face when he looks at the screen when she goes, the computer's just broke down the DNA. And it comes on screen and Dr. Maru knows immediately what it is.
Yeah, he knows. And he keeps it to himself for reasons that we'll talk about in a second. But there's some good bits leading up to it. Like, Dr. Mora talks about how they call him Constable, and Odo's like, oh, it's just a nickname that I put up with. And he's like, no, it's a sign of affection. It shows they care about her. And he does say that he's proud of him, and he admits to Dax how much he cares for Odo, but not to Odo at this point. And, it's all this not talking to each other, not expressing your feelings is what causes all the problems in this episode, basically. And this is when Mora, I think, really does go too far, because he uses the knowledge that this thing is Odo to try and manipulate Odo to coming back with him. He's like, have you got any unsolved crimes on the books? It could have been you.
Yeah.
And I don't think he really thinks that. But he knows how committed to justice and everything Odo is. So he's trying to get him somewhere where it'll hurt, You could be committing crimes, the one thing that you devoted to trying to stop, and they're going to put you in a zoo and all this, and it basically...
Yeah, like, now, I think this is a bit harsh because we do find out later that Odo literally was a zoo exhibit when he was with Dr. Maru. It was put on display for the Cardassians and...
Yeah, exactly. He did the Cardassian neck trick that they reference loads of times, which I'd love to know what it actually is. But anyway.
Well, I assume that it just changes his shape, so he's got the Cardassian neck.
Makes it. Yeah,
that's what I've always assumed that is.
Yeah, I would think so. And then, Odo basically snaps at this point. He breaks down, and we find out that Odo has been the monster, and Dr. Mora goes to Ops and tells him, no, he's aware of me. He was trying to rescue that thing from me because he didn't want me to experiment on it like I did on him.
Yeah.
He's hostile towards me, so he's going to act as bait. And he finally realizes that he's been going about this the wrong way at this point, and it's like, I've done this to you the way I've been treating you. And he's not wrong. I think ultimately we decide that the gas caused something in Odo, but all it did was... Yeah,
the gas has caused Odo to sort of, when he's unconscious, that is sort of his subconscious mind is taking over.
Exactly, and it's acting out on these things that he's feeling anyway. And ultimately, they do get it out of his system and everything, and...
they catch Odo with some of the really horrible CGI between two force fields.
It's not great.
Like, it isn't. It's like... I just wish that they'd avoided that part. I can see why they did it, but...
I can, because the thing is, when they introduced Odo as a shapeshifter, you're like, oh, we're going to see some incredible stuff, and the budget just wasn't there to do it.
No, they had the technology, because we'd had Terminator 2, so they'd shown that you could do these.
Yeah, you could do it, but you needed a lot more money to do it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, because can you imagine what they could have done with Odo on a TV budget now? It'd be incredible, some of the things they could do. But I like that Mora actually becomes self-aware enough at the end to say, he doesn't blame Odo. He's like, you had to speak in a voice loud enough for me to hear it. So
yeah,
he's admitting
I wasn't listening to you.
Here. Yeah, exactly. And he's
and it's quite nice that Odo tells him that he will keep in touch with him.
Yes, exactly. So you get the impression they've built some bridges at this point, and we do see Dr. Mora again, only once, but we do get him again. So this is followed up a little bit. I think at the time I was a bit disappointed by this episode because the trailers made it look like there was another shapeshifter, and obviously, they want to twist that it's Odo, which is fair enough. But I was thinking, right, we're going to see a fight between Odo and another shapeshifter, and that's going to be awesome. And we do get that, but not until the season 3 finale. So at the time, I was a bit disappointed by it, but it's one that I like this episode a lot more now than I did when it was first on. So I was just disappointed at the time, but
yeah,
I think it's a decent episode.
I think it's also that you probably got, now that you know the whole story of the Dominion and all that from DS9, that you can see how these little things do fit in. And
yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at...
And you can see, okay, Odo wasn't... When Odo was found, he was literally a liquid, and then he started mimicking, etc. But he was still sentient.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was aware, we talk about it later, we will talk about the episodes later, but that he was experimented on, he was electrocuted to make him change shape and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And
so there's no wonder he's got resentment.
Oh, definitely. And you can extrapolate that to how the founders feel about solids in general, How Odo feels here is a miniature version of what they feel like, and they run with their inhibitions, and they set up an empire basically, so that they don't have to be in that position again. So yeah, it does fit in nicely with what we find out later on. So next time we're gonna carry on with Barclay, but we've in a roundabout way, we've worked our way back to Voyager again. So we're going to look at projections from Voyager, which is the first appearance of Barclay in Voyager.
And the good thing when we go to Barclay with Voyager, we go back to holodecks as well.
Exactly, yeah. Projections is a very good holodeck episode. Yeah. And then we're going to look at the last of the prelude to the Dominion War. We're looking at Shadow Play, which is the last...
Is it the last?
It's the last mention of the Dominion before we actually meet someone from the Dominion. So...
Right.
We're nearly there. We're nearly actually at the arrival of the Dominion. Which I don't think we've done bad. We could have gone even further. We could have included anyone from the Gamma Quadrant and done Ala Moraine, but we'll see.
Yeah, we decided that that might be a pub episode as well.
That might be a pub episode, definitely. If you want to get in touch with us in the meantime, you can send us a message on Twitter. We're at RetrekPod. You can email us retrekpod@gmail.com. You can come and join the Facebook group. Just search for Retrek on Facebook. Check out on YouTube. Elliot's got his Starship modelling page on there, starting work on the Voyager now. And the
Retrek Model Studios. Enterprise has one or two more videos to come, but they're going to be a bit till I get to them because it's building a big base and stuff.
Awesome.
And my woodworking skills aren't brilliant.
Looking good.
But, I put a video out this week for Voyager with a weapons test.
Yes.
Showing off some of the electronics that are going in.
Brilliant. So, thanks for trekking with us this time, and we'll see you next time on the Retrek.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
still on. I ain't clicked 10 broadcast fast enough. Little bit of bonus content for the people watching online.